I'm Matthew.
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
And we are the Heroes 3. Welcome to Heroes 3, the bi-weekly podcast where three friends explore the best, worst, and everything in between in the world of Asian cinema. And this week is another animated interlude, and we're taking a look at a kind of long time coming movie, I think, for us. And that is 1984's Macross Do You Remember Love? Directed by Noboru Ishiguro and Shoji Kawamori. And of course, with the famous Ichiro Itano doing the drawing direction for it. And yeah, this is another one of those movies that I had seen before we started the podcast, or maybe I think it was early on when we started the podcast. I think Carlos mentioned Macross and Do You Remember Love? And I was like, I like how 80s anime stuff looks, and especially movies, because a lot of 80s anime is still pretty limited. So I watched this movie and I absolutely loved it. And when I rewatched it this time, it was even better.
Awesome.
And the Blu-ray rip that Carlos put up is gorgeous.
So beautiful.
It's
Crazy.
so pretty. And yeah, this is an amazing movie, and I love it's a mecha anime, but it's also a romance, and it's also kind of a musical, and the power of music literally defeats the aliens.
Totally.
It's so good.
Cool. Well, you liked it. Marty, I'm curious.
No, dude. I was both excited and I think really anxious to watch it because I was picking up on like how meaningful it was to both of you guys. And
Yeah, it was funny. Literally, as Marty was dropping me off at the airport after VGM Con this year, I mentioned about this, and Marty said he hadn't seen it, and I was like, "Oh, dude, it's so good." While Callie was like, "We have to go to the airport."
Nice.
well, and I think that the only anxiousness is because pretty uninitiated compared to a lot of folks when it comes to anime, and I also have to say I'm not always the greatest fan of everything that I come across, but yeah, I just
Totally valid.
I completely fell for the movie, the music. I mean, it's as far as what is going to come across your eyes, like visually, this is, I mean, to my taste, this is really like the blueprint of how something should look and how something should move. Just the and use of color, everything, and then story. I don't know. I'd be like oscillating between being really touched and then just really kind of like tickled or something, because there's kind of, I would say it's like there's like a greater kind of like macro story of like the
Nice.
macro culture
Nice.
of kind of like the lore and like the sci-fi meat and potatoes of it that feels like very strong and very smart. And then there's like the human story that kind of feels like a little boy that's just about to hit puberty or something, kind of just like playing out his fantasies, but he's actually a very sweet boy. He's not like lecherous. And I don't know, you just have these kind of like dream scenarios for yeah, it's so I don't know, this kind of like boy daydreaming fantasy, and it kind of just brought me, I don't know, in touch with my childhood or whatever. Or it's the kind of like concept of romance. It's like, oh, if I'm completely trapped with this girl and there's no other options in the world, she'll finally get to see like how nice I am,
And she's the most popular girl. She's
She's the prettiest
totally.
girl in the
She's
world.
a pop
She
singer.
can-
And there's
she
something
can
about
sing,
it.
Everyone likes her.
Yeah.
And it does, I don't know, it's like when that definitely was kind of the juiciest part of the movie for me. I know we'll get into it, but I mean, yeah, I just felt like there was a lot of movie magic quality to this, and I know just enough about the context around the series that it's summarizing basically, and then some of the lore around Robotech stuff to have maybe a little bit of appreciation for kind of where this sits, but not enough awareness to to really kind of like fully understand the context. So I'm excited to kind of to learn a lot today, I think, from y'all.
Well, yeah, I love to hear it. And you mentioned childhood, and this goes directly back to my childhood. So
Awesome.
in the 80s, watching cartoons, a cartoon that I enjoyed as a child was Robotech. And this is a tangled web of Robotech and Macross that continues to this day, but without getting...
Is there? I feel like there should be a documentary about Robotech.
Oh yeah,
it's so fascinating and so weird.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not going to try to encapsulate all of this information. No. But the long and short of it is,
we don't want this episode to be 6 hours long.
I don't either. Yeah, but Macross was brought over to the United States as a TV show called Robotech, and Robotech not only consists of Macross, but 2 other shows that they basically lumped together and basically threaded together kind of their own story. And the reason that they actually put those shows together is because back in the day there was like it's like a 65 episode contract, so they needed to fulfill that 65 episodes.
Gotcha. For like the American networks or whatever.
Yeah, and Macross, Macross in Japan was originally going to only be 27 episodes, but it was popular, so they extended it to 39 episodes, I believe. And
I think it's 36.
Okay. Well, either way, it was popular enough to be extended, but actually the production was pretty rough because most of the production was very young, new animators, and including Shoji Kawamori. So the production was up and down, and actually, as they were finishing production of the TV series, they were starting production on this film that we're talking about today. But the thing with Robotech that's really funny to me is that it was basically them making up their own story out of animation that already existed. So the thing I think about is like, if you let somebody else borrow your toys, they're playing with your toys, and then
but
go
they don't quite play with them right. What
are
you doing?
Yeah.
And also, when you go to get your toys back, they're like, no, these are actually like my toys. I have this whole story here, and I don't want to give them back to you. So that's like the simplest way to talk about the kind of the legal battles that have existed that still kind of exist to this day. Harmony Gold is kind of the overarching company, and there's a figure that in anime is kind of an infamous figure. But honestly, the more you dig into it, a lot of anime wouldn't really have made it over to the United States initially, if not for his efforts. And his name's Carl Macek, and depending on who you are, you're either really mad to hear his voice or you're interested. Hear his name. Harmony Gold really has been holding on to the license of Robotech and the deal that they made years ago with Macross. So for a long time, it was very hard to get any of this stuff over here. And actually, like, officially, a lot of that stuff still hasn't come over. But actually, just recently, there was a deal struck that on Disney Plus, of all platforms, the biggest monster of them all, Macross is going to be available in the US, minus the original Macross show and Do You Remember Love, which is hilarious that everything else besides the foundation,
the 2 things that everyone probably knows the best, and arguably the best stuff from it. I haven't seen a lot of the other stuff. I did, in preparation for this, try a couple of the other Macross series, and none of them really struck a chord with me.
Yeah, and I feel like after we talk about the movie itself, I'd be happy to recommend some other stuff.
I might have like kind of read this incorrectly, but it sounds like when developing Robotech, they wanted to license this movie, right? But then wasn't there red tape?
Yeah,
so it sounds like kind of like a lose-lose for like they weren't able to make it then, but do they somehow have the rights to it now? Is that what's going on?
Well, there's another player in the mix, and you see it when you start watching this film. Is the first thing you see is the Toho logo. We've talked about Toho greatly when we covered Godzilla stuff, but they also have stakes in this, and they were preventing the US from releasing Do You Remember Love as Robotech the movie. So actually, Robotech the movie, which was released here, is made up of another anime called Megazone 2-3, and that was, I think somebody put it up on YouTube now, but it's again, they're taking this animation and making their own characters out of it and kind of changing the story enough, but just enough that the animation will kind of give you that story, but also they're trying to change it to make their own story out of it. It's super weird.
Gotcha.
It's really complicated and super weird, but it's kind of fun that all this weird stuff exists. So if you really wanted to dig into that rabbit hole, you'd be like, holy crap, I can't believe it. And Carl Masick as a figure, he's done interviews, and I actually listened to a pretty long interview with him, and it's crazy to hear his little dance around how successful he was and why, you know, all this was. But like I said, he was the guy that really started to streamline. We mentioned streamline pictures a couple of times because when you go back into the 80s with anime, you think of these older dubs that some people think fondly of, some people hate that they existed. That was all coming out. Well, not all of it, but a lot of the early stuff was coming out through Streamline. Mm-hmm. We talked about Project A-ko, and I feel like the DNA of Project A-ko and what we see here with Do You Remember Love, you know, Project A-ko being a parody, but also the production values and the kind of idea of these animators really trying to do amazing work on the screen is very, very parallel to what we're seeing with Do You Remember Love. So moving into this production, this came out in 1984. And it was directed by Noboru Ishiguro and Shoji Kawamori. Noboru Ishiguro was the director of the TV series. And before that, he worked on some of Space Battleship Yamato. And another huge iconic cornerstone of anime.
Anime and especially sci-fi anime, like space sci-fi anime, all kind of go back to that.
Yep. But on the other side of it was Shoji Kawamori, who was really fresh-faced. This was kind of like one of his first big projects, and coming out of college and working for a studio called Studio Nue, they were a big part of what made all of this, Macross and Do You Remember Love? And then along with him is the character designer for this film, Haruhiko Mikimoto, who, when you see these character designs, they almost look like nothing else. It looks almost like some ways impressionistic of an anime character, you know, like their eyes have like the most shiny eyes ever. They're warped in a weird way, but it's really appealing. And
it's like, so exciting. It's like there are aspects of it where like the anatomy is like incredibly strong and dimensional. Mm-hmm. And like tightly detailed, but then like you say, there are these kind of like abstract flourishes, and it's coming to this so late in life, it's one of those kind of eureka moments where you're like, oh, I am now touching the thing that clearly has influenced like so many thousands of people, because you get flavors of this design, I think, in a lot of spaces.
This is, now we're talking about the proto culture.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're talking about now. But so Mikimoto would also do character designs for Gunbuster, another OVA series that I absolutely love.
Probably do at some point.
We don't really cover series on the podcast, but we will find a way.
Movie length.
Yeah,
OVA,
there's a movie version of it too, but I really would.
All the episodes together is only like 2 hours, right? Or
6 episodes. Yep.
Yeah.
Which to me is like the sweet spot for an OVA. He also did character designs for an OVA of Gundam called Gundam 0080 War in the Pocket, which I also would recommend to anybody, especially if you're trying to, I guess, maybe get into Gundam, which is a daunting thing. It's an enclosed story. You don't really need to know anything to the beginning or to the after it. It just stands alone, and it's great. Shoji Kawamori, more than just a director, and I feel like this film, what they're doing with this movie is basically like almost like FF7 remake in a way. You know, they're taking this thing, something that you're really excited about, and they're repackaging it, and it looks really flashy, and they're changing things to kind of make it its own thing. And there are pros and cons to that, and I think one of the things that maybe Marty was getting into when we were talking about like the story is that the characters are very reduced to very a one-note situation where you can't really develop characters like you do in a multi-episode series. So I think if there is a fault in this film, it's just in how they kind of rush through some characters, or some characters seem a little rough around the edges because you don't get the nuance that you would get in a TV series. But the reason that I bring that up is because Noboru Ishiguro, he's the director. He is the director, and Shoji Kawamori also. But I think all of the kind of details that change that make the film what it is are really thanks to Shoji Kawamori. And he also was like the mechanical designer here. So the actually legendary like designer. So I don't know if you guys know, but before Transformers, there's a toy line called Diaclone, and those were basically like what became the Transformers line. And actually, Studio Nue was contracted under Takara to design these Diaclone cars, and he was one of the contributors to design Optimus Prime.
Oh, dude,
So,
wow.
just insane. And you read a lot of interviews and hear a lot of things, and he was very excited to do design work using like Legos. So like the original Valkyrie designs, like he would make like in Legos just to prove that it can happen.
Oh, cool.
And just
so
the design of the Valkyrie itself. Now, we think of, when you see like an F-15 or F-14, you think of like Top Gun, which actually this predates Top Gun just shortly, but the Valkyrie is literally just an F-14.
It's just an F-14 that can turn into a robot.
Which, I mean, you already sold it to Carlos. You're done.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything.
The one
else.
improvement that was left hanging in the aircraft design. Yeah.
Yep. But also you have another mechanical designer for this film. His name is Kazutaka Miyatake, and also a very legendary mechanical designer in the realm of anime. So Space Battleship Yamato he worked on. So there was a novelization of Starship Troopers, and with that, there was some like figures and stuff that came out. They became pretty popular in Japan. He designed the like powered suits for Starship Troopers. He also worked on Gunbuster. He also worked on Aura Battler Dumbine, which is another kind of a fantasy mecha show that was from the 80s that was also helmed by one of the creators of Gundam. So yeah, it's crazy just to see that this is like almost like a Dragon Quest situation, or no, wait, I'm sorry, Chrono Trigger, where you've got all these people that are really famous for doing other things, kind of working together on this project. But
and the mechanical designs are next level.
Yes,
like
gorgeous.
Literally, just like I was just scrubbing through the movie, and just the intro where you're seeing the Macross coming out of like the shadows. You see like all the intricate parts of it when you see the cockpit and like the bridge of the ship, and like there's just so many intricate details and lights and switches and screens. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's almost absurd.
Pound for pound. I mean, it's almost the most beautiful stretch of animation you could find, because I don't know. Yeah, it's like every department is operating at such a high level. It's like the painted backgrounds are gorgeous, and there's actually quite a lot of them. But yeah, like you're saying, Matthew, I feel like all of us are you kind of make these subliminal adjustments when you're watching classic animation, which is like, okay, yeah, there's a level of detail to the painted backdrop that's not going to happen in the animated character or vehicle or figure as it's attempting to like move in pseudo 3D space. But I don't know what's going on here, but everything is at like such a consistently high level. Like the draftsmanship is so good, but it's also so full of flair. It's like it's not just kind of like this clinical exercise or I don't know, man. Just stunning piece of work. Dang.
Yeah. Miyatake designed the Macross itself, like the SDF-1 Macross, which is such a crazy, detailed, kind of high level, let's really like go above and beyond. When the Macross is revealed in this film at the beginning, light is casting over it out of the shadows, and you almost don't even understand what it is at first, and then once you see it and then the logo comes up, you're like, whoa. And it definitely has kind of Star Wars vibes, like Star Destroyer, but the idea that this is a huge, like a giant, over like a city size ship that then can turn into basically a humanoid shape and it houses a city, like a population within it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we can talk about the differences between this in the film and in the series, because in the series it's actually pretty funny. They're trying to escape the enemy. So okay, I mean, yeah, this is gonna be a really long episode, but basically here, so the basic premise is this ship crashes to Earth, and people find this ship, and then they're able to kind of create the Macross out of this alien ship. Then the aliens show up and attack, and then the humans try to escape, but they end up accidentally like ending up on the other side of the solar system, and they're trying to make their way home. In the TV series, it's kind of like hilarious to me because if I'm remembering right, they execute like a warp. They call it a fold, space fold.
Yeah,
and they
that's
accidentally like fold part of like the island that their ship is above, and that's why there's a population of people, because they accidentally like folded a shelter with them.
Oh wow, crazy.
Oh, that's funny.
So in the TV series, the city looks like kind of just a normal city. It doesn't look like futuristic or anything. But with Do You Remember Love, they've reimagined all of this to kind of integrate into itself, and they don't give you all of those story beats. They're kind of rushing you past all of that. So what you do end up with is this amazing futuristic city within the Macross ship itself, and it's like nothing you've really thought of.
And it couldn't feel more
seen.
intentional. It seems like clearly like this was designed to be kind of like a survival colony or whatever.
Yeah, but there's
that's so cool that it's almost like a second pass at the materials that they developed for the series. And again, yeah, we'll probably use this kind of metaphor a lot today, I think. But yeah, it's just like playing with your action figures. It's like, yeah, let me go at that again, and actually, honestly, put the truck over here.
It's a thing that I think happens in a lot of Japanese media. I see it more than in stuff in America, where it's like, it's not, I don't know, I feel a lot of stuff in America, there's people take second passes at stuff all the time with like comics and whatever, but a lot of times they feel the need to try to like fit it in some way, like with alternate universes or timelines and all that stuff.
Or like you're assuming it's sacred or something.
Yeah, and in this, I like, it's just, let's just do it again.
Yeah,
we'll hit all the same major points, but we'll just try it again. And honestly, I really like, it feels more sci-fi, the setup of they are on the run, or they had to run from these aliens, and they're going to Earth to see what happened and find that Earth is basically destroyed.
Yeah.
That's a really cool premise, I think, and a great way to kind of concatenate the whole thing.
Yeah,
So.
and we haven't even really touched on kind of the iconic ideas of Macross that you mentioned earlier. This kind of trifecta of things. One, you have transforming robots. Of course, people are going to love that. Two,
honestly, I think it's the transferring robots is what gets you in the door.
Yeah.
But the thing that makes it sing is the music and the romance subplot. Like that's the reason why this has had such an impact on the anime world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the two other corners. Yeah, you've got a love triangle, and then you've got the music being a big part of this. And I mean, honestly, if you're peeling these layers away about pop culture influence, and as the series goes on in different iterations, you're starting to see like a virtual idol. Like Hatsune Miku wouldn't really exist in a way without the ideas that are like solidified with this pop idol situation. And Minmay was based on Seiko Matsuda, which is she's an awesome 80s Japanese pop idol. She's actually my favorite 80s Japanese pop idol, but you get to see like kind of that personality come out. And if you're familiar with her work, it's kind of the same thing. But
well, and even like this, like, you know, a lot of the, I don't know, like features that you kind of associate with the Japanese idol aesthetic seem like they're just kind of organically sprouting out of like the story here. It's like, oh yeah, she would need to kind of broadcast across the city on the Macross, and it's space agey because they're, I don't know, it's just like it's exciting to really just kind of get to witness this kind of all packed into like this one character in this one place. I'm just curious because, like, coming to this so late, obviously, are people cool with Hikaru like choosing Misa, or is this like a highly contested thing? Because
Well,
just like
okay.
I felt like both the adult in me and like the little boy that was awake, it's like it's all about Minmay. Like what's
It's
he
funny
doing?
you say that, because for me personally, I really kind of appreciated that he didn't do that, because
Cool.
it's in the show, their relationship's a lot more. I didn't watch all of the show. I'd watched most of it a few years ago, and then I just kind of jumped around a bunch.
Gotcha.
in
His
prep for
relationship
this.
with Misa is more developed, would you say?
Both of them are.
Okay,
We see a lot more of their relationship with each other, and it's a lot more of a straight up love triangle where like Misa is like really jealous of Minmay and vice versa.
Gotcha.
But I think, I don't know, it seems cool because it's like in the last episode of the series, he chooses Misa over Minmay, and it says basically like no one could pin down Minmay, like she's too much of a free spirit kind of thing. And I feel like it does make sense, because like in this, they are brought together through a traumatic experience, and it's like a rush, but like it could never actually work out, and like your romantic brain wants it to, but it's a weirdly mature thing for such a silly concept as the pop idol gets hooked up with a fan.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
I think that's a really cool read. I think it's somehow maybe at the tempo of the movie or something, and also I think just like their little incident was so like movie magical to me, and I think it just became difficult to like compete against.
Yeah. Those are
spark. Yeah.
me not knowing how you would react to the film. I was thinking, these are like the tick in the check in the box that I think, oh, this is like a Marty thing, like this kind of like like romantic kind of like thing, and music's such a big part of this, and
Oh my god,
how like real everything is. It's all hand drawn stuff, and film is a big part of how they handled the animation. Yeah, but divisive in a lot of ways in fans. Like, so this is like otaku culture too, kind of, people obsessing over things and picking the characters that they like the most, and cosplaying. This is this is early era stuff, and in Japan,
cute girls and big robots.
Yeah. It's really exciting to see like how influential all this stuff was. I mean, okay, going back to me as a kid though, like liking Robotech, and like around this time Voltron was on. This is like right before Transformers, and I mean, I love Transformers, and actually like the '86 film, the animated film of Transformers, the movie, that like visually stands very close to what you see in this film too. I mean, it's all it's not as many people. It's all like cartoon, like robots talking to each other and stuff. But the production values are really high. And actually, Transformers the movie is like a really interesting topic, because it's a West and East, producing this like product, and that's a really interesting thing. And I'll suffer you guys. Sometime down the line, you'll have to suffer hearing me talk about that a lot.
I still haven't seen it, and I'm almost scared to.
No, it's all right.
Because so many of my friends, especially so many of my friends that are a little older than me, because I definitely miss Transformers like completely. Except Beast Wars. I watched Beast Wars when I was a kid.
Nice.
But I completely missed that, and I've heard so many of my friends that are a little older than me talking about how like important the Transformers movie is to me. And like, I imagine I'm afraid to watch it and be like, this is nonsense.
In a similar way, how there's so much in this film. This film is like 2 hours almost. Transformers the movie also really long, and there's all these different parts and different character sections of the film. But it all has really high production value coming from Japan. So visually, it's just another feast. Yeah, I guess before we start really kind of getting into, plot points and stuff, and like I said, I don't want this to be like 30 hours long, so we're just gonna jump around with it. But I wanted to talk about more of the staff, because the animation director is actually Haruhiko Mikimoto, was also an animation director on the film, and then Ichiro Itano, so he's like basically kind of like he was like, so they basically what they say is Mikimoto was like the characters, and then Itano was like the mechanics of the film. And Toshihiro Hirano was also one of the animation directors. But with Itano, his attention to detail, and it was kind of infamous and actually kind of caused production issues because they're trying to move forward with stuff, but he's just so obsessed with all the details, and you see it in every frame of this film. But one of the things that among like mecha fans and anime fans might know, it's called the Itano Circus. And the Itano Circus is basically anytime you've got a fighter jet or an enemy that kind of casts off a handful of missiles, and each of those missiles has a trail. So it ends up being this visually distinct thing where you have this almost like a spider's web of different missiles like in the midst of a space war. So if you ever hear that term, that's what people are talking about, and you see that many times.
It's funny, the article for Itano on Wikipedia is half of it is just talking about what an Itano circus is.
Nice.
Which is really funny to me. But yeah, it's beautiful whenever it happens. I will say, just with the pacing of a movie versus a TV show, I feel like when there's like a handful of space battles in this, and each one of them is a big treat. And sometimes in this show, it's like, oh, and we have to have a space battle. Okay, space battle time.
Yeah, nice.
But with this, it really is every time. It's it's something to look forward to. I love. There's one specific bit of animation where Hikaru is like spinning his ship around, and it like is playing with the whole like 0G in space thing, where it's like rotating on itself, and that is incredible attention to mechanical detail. It's something else. I could talk about like every frame of this movie.
Yeah, it's really exciting. But
we can keep going.
Yeah, so as far as key animators go, I also noted down some names that anime fans would be familiar with. First and foremost, Hideaki Anno, Marty's favorite director for Shin Godzilla. This was a early work. I don't know exactly what he worked on, but he's listed as one of the key animators. Alongside him, there's another name, Koji Morimoto. So I'm a huge fan of his work. And another animated film that I would love us to talk about down the line is Memories, which is like a compilation film of 3 separate stories. And he directed the first segment of that called Magnetic Rose. He also worked on the Animatrix. Oh, wow. And Robot Carnival is another kind of anthology film that I really enjoy. He did a short called Frankengears. And actually, before we recorded, Marty, you were talking about animation cells. And I have an animation cell from Frankengears. And I found it in the most random spot. Joanna and I were in Las Vegas some years back, and there was a toy store that we were looking through, and there was a bin with a bunch of like random animation cells, and there was no price on this, but when I saw it, I immediately recognized it from Frankengears, and I went up to the counter and I was like, how much do you want for this? And then the person at the desk had to call the manager, and the manager had to talk. And me in my head, I'm like, what the hell? Like, this is insane. I can't believe I'm looking at this. And I got it for like $40.
Oh, dude, congrats. That's
so good. Crazy. It's crazy. And it was the cell and the background, which to find that is really rare.
And for $40, damn.
Yeah, but before we recorded, we were talking about cells a little bit, and I never really got into buying animation cells, but I do remember like late 90s, going into early 2000s. This was kind of a similar situation to like Super Nintendo or Nintendo games, where you just were seeing them everywhere. So like if I would go to a convention, there would just be a vendor with bins full of animation cells, and they were, priced to sell. It wasn't like some crazy relic or anything. They just wanted to get rid of it. So, I mean, I remember seeing cells for Ranma 1/2 and Fist of the North Star and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I have a friend that was very, a lot more interested in buying cells. So, yeah, at my friend's, he's got cells from like Gal Gaigar. Actually, he gave me a cell from Gal Gaigar, so I have one. And he's got animation cells from Ranma 1/2. My buddy has cells from the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure OVA from the 90s, and it's actually from like the Dio fight. Like there's this
like the famous
famous, and that actually we talked about it in one of the Satoshi Kon episodes, because he directed like sequences for that. And he's literally got like a cell of like Dio doing like the muda muda, like the fast punches.
Wow.
He owns it, and it's like crazy. It's like a pan shot, so it's a long cell. It's more than just one page. Just insane to think about how readily available all that was back in the day. And now, like, I think, Marty, you were looking on eBay to see if there were any Do You Remember Love cells, right?
Yeah.
And that would be a huge, highly sought item now.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I don't know, it's fascinating, like, trying to picture that point in time and exactly maybe what different studios' attitudes were towards preservation. I'm guessing for a lot of them it was, just get this out of storage. We need the space. But that's crazy thinking of that period where you could just kind of weave through cell after cell at a convention or something, and this definitely feels like a market that's only just going to get more and more kind of elite and inaccessible. So those some crazy finds.
Yeah. So I think we covered a lot. There's still a lot of other stuff to be said about it, but let's dance around and talk about this film a little bit. We're not gonna do like everything, but I think it'd be fun to really kind of pull it apart a little bit for the listeners and for us, because I'm just really excited that you guys watched this.
Yeah. Well, I think the coolest and most unique part from the beginning that we haven't covered yet is the concert, because one of the very first things we see is Lin Minmay in concert. And it's really funny because in the movie, one of the songs that she sings is Xiao Pai Long, which I remember watching it and being like, what is this? Is a song about a dragon or something? In the show, it's like a movie, and it's the theme song to a movie that's made in the universe that she does the theme song to. Yeah. And I was like, that makes a lot more sense than she's just singing this kind of funky song about someone slaying evil after singing a song about how my boyfriend's a pilot.
Right. There's a lot of things that you see in this film that are basically Easter eggs to fans of the series. And that's where I feel like, it's one of these things that you'll miss. I don't know. I don't think it's essential. What I do like about that, though, is that you're introduced to Minmay as a pop star already in the film. In the TV series, she's basically a civilian that eventually
becomes
gets to
a pop star.
Yeah. And I actually think it's actually a really smart way to handle that, and actually the way that Hikaru and Minmay's relationship kind of starts. It's kind of a cool way because they're in the middle of this concert. And then the alien forces, the Zentradi. They attack. And the beginning of the film starts off showing the Zentradi, and they like have this discussion where also they have like a weird made up language.
Weird language.
In the series, it's basically a distortion put over Japanese line deliveries.
And also they kind of just look like weird looking guys.
Yeah, they're like just big
as alien.
Big dudes in the show.
Yeah.
There is a really
the weirdest like flashback of when Amy Poehler and Tina Fey used to do this bit of the Bush daughters having a secret language. Anyways, I'll see if I can find a clip for you to drop.
Yeah, I'll put a clip.
Nice.
Well, don't wonder out loud. Jenna, we're twins. We have to share our most secret thoughts about everything. Well, it's disrespectful. Just answer me in our secret twin language. Barbara, we haven't used that language since we were like 19. Do, but you, but think, but dads, but good, but president.
There's a really great moment at the beginning of the TV series where basically the enemy's revealed to Hikaru, and it's like this shocking moment when he sees that in this like enemy suit of armor there's actually a giant dude. It's like upsetting to him to see like a giant alien person, but that doesn't happen in here. But the Zentradi in the movie are more monstrous looking and more faceless, I think, too. When you see like the regular soldiers, you know, they have the visors on, you never see like their regular face. When you do see their face, they're like blowing up or you know, it's just blood and guts. There is a bit of violence.
Yeah, the movie definitely it has that thing that I think a lot of 80s anime movies have, where it's like most of it seems like you could almost show this to a kid, and then there's just crazy violence.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Actually, that's a good chance for me to talk about the Western releases of this film, because there's a couple.
And then please educate us on the English dub at some point, because it was incredible. I watched that the second time.
Delta to Skull 11. Intercept that ship. You must do this immediately.
Who's talking? I saved you before, remember?
Please, no more answering back. Just get on with your job.
But who's gonna deal with the enemy?
Leave them to the Defense Force Network. They'll handle them.
I'll deal with them. I'm not listening to a woman. Go!
Wait! You chauvinist! You disobey my orders?
So yeah, we'll do that. So the original like English version that I remember seeing was called Clash of the Bionoids, and it's basically an edited down dubbed version of the film. So it trims like half an hour off of the movie. Obviously takes out all that violent content.
So kind of in the spirit of like what they did with Nausicaa a little bit.
Yeah, similar way. I don't think that was streamlined. It might have been streamlined. But anyways,
it all comes back to streamline.
Yeah, the Warriors of the Wind or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Then there's also like Toho. There's like a dub it just was called like Space Fortress Macross or Space Ship Macross or something, and that was a dubbed version that was unedited. As far as I can tell, it was a dub that was recorded in Hong Kong. I know in Spaces, people were saying that it was dubbed in Japan to like teach Japanese English. I couldn't find that out for sure, but I think that the reason people kind of say that was, one, there was another feature, I forget what it was, if it was like a Lupin or something, that was the case with. But two, I just think that the quality of the dub is low, so people assumed that that's what it is.
Yeah, that has to be
there
right.
must be a reason.
Yeah.
And you have these great like Aussie accents.
They're so good,
gloriously thick. And
I will say, I do. It's obviously anime dubbing happens almost exclusively in America and Canada, so it makes sense that that's all of it. But it is cool whenever you hear an anime dub where it's like someone that's very obviously like British or Australian, because it's so different. Or like I've seen like manga panels that are very much like British English, it's just it's funny. It's like, oh yeah, I guess you know there's probably stuff that might translate better to British English than to American English.
Yeah,
right,
nice.
Right.
I mentioned I didn't find it, but I saw that there's like a fan dub of, and I don't really get into that side of things too much usually.
Sure.
But the reason that I thought it was notable is that Christina V is the voice actress for Minmay in that dub. And I mean, she's gone on to do a lot of voice work in the States and video game stuff too, like Shantae. I think she's in Skullgirls, a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. But that's kind of cool.
While we're talking about dub, I did the rip I have of the series is from the dub in it is the ADV dub from I think 2003, 2004, something like that. And it's pretty good. It has a few kind of, I don't know, it has a few things where it's like you guys knew you were going to be exclusively on DVD, so you throw in a couple of shits and fucks in there.
Oh, really?
Gotcha.
At one point, Claudia is talking to Misa about Min Mei and basically calls Min Mei a bitch.
Nice.
Like, are you gonna let that bitch take your man?
Yeah,
made me
that
laugh.
happens.
But the cool thing about that is that Min Mei is voiced by Mari Iijima. The original Japanese voice actress does her in English.
At least after we die, we'll make a good dinner for the rats. Just like that tuna.
Hey, don't say things like that, Min-Mei.
It's okay. You see, it's just that I wish I could have worn a wedding dress just once before I died.
Min-Mei.
Oh, nice.
Which is really cool because I don't know.
That's so cool.
It's funny for in the movie that almost would make more sense than in the show. But the idea of this Japanese pop idol happened to be part of the people that got taken up, and she's getting adjusted and it's kind of a fish out of water. I don't know. That seems like a cool,
It's great.
cool kind of way to have her do the original voice. But she does a good job.
I love it. And actually, that's a great way to pull us back into the film because that gives us a perfect way to talk about the music. So, Mari Iijima, another fresh-faced industry person. This is like her first major role. There's a really great interview where she's talking about how she just basically was just coming out of high school. Doing all this stuff, and that was 82 is when the show came out, I believe, and then she was Lin Min Mei on the show, and then she's Lin Min Mei on the film, and she's not only the voice actress, but she's also the singing voice, and in the show, so like that Xiao Pai Long, and I think the show songs were composed by Kentaro Haneda, and in the film, those songs are there again. The newer songs aren't composed by him, but all the score is composed by him, and it uses a lot of material from the TV series. And we talked about Kentaro Haneda like eons ago because he did the score for Hoero Tekken, the Hiroyuki Sanada film. So actually went back and listened to that a little bit just to see how stupid did I sound. But it was cool because I was listening to
not at all.
Well, he was talking. Me. I was talking about
this idiot.
Yeah.
This Carlos guy. Not sure about him.
Yeah, I was talking about wizardry because he did all the wizardry ports on
that was what I saw.
Famicom and stuff. And I echo what past Carlos said. They're awesome. You should check out the
really
soundtracks. But he does the music for this film, and I think, not only the songs, but the scoring for this film is just so good and so romantic and just so exciting. I love it.
And the orchestra just sounds glorious. Yeah, I mean, it's every aspect of the production value of the movie is delicious, and just relative to where we are in time now, all of it is just beautifully nostalgic in the best way.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing I should say too is that this is in the mid 80s in Japan, and we've talked about a couple of animated features from around this time. But the thing that I think is really cool to think about too is that this was during the Japanese economic bubble, where it's
the bubble economy.
So
they
much,
had so much money
to spend, and you see all of that. On this film.
All of it.
It all made it on screen. That's amazing.
It really did.
And not just that, but I also feel in a way some of the the sequences, seeing Hikaru and Minmei like out on a date, and you can see like the bustling city and how exciting everything is. There's product placement. There's like McDonald's and Coca-Cola
Yeah.
all over the film. It's kind of almost, the people that were animating it reflecting on what the city was like at the time, which is this is really cool. And then the other side of that too, that I think the more I watch this film, the more apparent it becomes to me, is that the idea that, okay, so these aliens attack, and in the midst of this, Hikaru and Minmei are stranded within the Macross, and that's how their relationship like blooms at the beginning. But during this invasion, the Zentradi see that men and women are together, and they're shocked by this idea, and it's like this, they can't believe it, and that's a driving force for the enemies.
Some disturbing data has been uncovered. Our commandos have found micro-humans.
What? Give me a close-up. Male and female micro-human.
That's right. They were together. They seem to be friends.
Unbelievable.
And
I wrote in my notes that because the first time I watched this, I remember thinking one of the other pilots, Roy Fokker, he's like this hothead, like super sexist, like big man on campus kind of thing. And I was thinking, and then it cuts to the Zentradi that somehow make him look less sexist.
Yes,
because they're like men and women together. What?
So what I was kind of
Sharing
getting
the
at,
same oxygen.
the idea here is that, I mean, I don't know. It's almost like an otaku thing where it's like, ugh,
it really is
like girls, like
it feels very kind of incel-y, which is really funny.
It's something that the more I return to this movie, the more I'm like, interesting.
But I think too, it's
like
taking it to the action figure, like little boy place,
yeah,
where it's like it's coming out of kind of like a tittering nervous fear or something.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's like a boy saying girls are gross, but I kind of like them, but maybe I shouldn't just think that they're gross. Yeah, that's it's really fun, but it's some of the lines are so funny because I feel like they could have been written on a 4chan thread in like 2008.
Nice.
Talking about it.
Nope.
Oh,
But
so good.
With Hikaru and Minmei, they have this kind of
I have a lot more to say about the aliens, so we'll get to that. But
yeah, for sure. But the thing that I love, like I said earlier, is that she's already a pop star, and like he kind of plays on that, like, oh my god, like you're Lim and Make. Like when they meet,
it's like
he's
the second thing that he says after "Are you okay?" is "Can I get an autograph?"
Yeah, that's hilarious. I love that. So they kind of develop this little thing, and then just as they're kind of playing out this romantic kind of back and forth, she's kind of showing him her acting skills. They have a kiss, and ta-da! Like they're rescued. The ship opens up, and it's like a huge paparazzi event.
And the kiss is the great little like little boy fantasy. It's like, oh, but I saw you in a movie. Sorry, no, I'm just thinking of the Aussie accent. It's like, I saw you in a movie and you must have been in love. And it's like, no, let me show you. It's like, it's not enough to just explain it to you. I have to kiss you.
Yeah. So their relationship is kind of like on the DL after that, and there's this kind of play between him and his crewmates. So Roy Fokker is kind of like the kind of bravado.
But it also feels kind of like a little bit of a tabloid story, like human interest piece or something. Or there's buzz around it, like that they were together. Yeah.
But they're like secretly like having dates and stuff. She's in disguise, and Fokker. In the series, he does have some of these similar characteristics, but there's a little more warmth to his character as kind of a senpai, like the kind of like senior member that I look up to. We have a relationship. In this film, it's kind of reduced to kind of this chauvinistic thing, which is unfortunate, but this kind of meet cute kind of secret dating thing is going on. Then Minmay and Hikaru, along with a handful of other of these crew members, are captured by the Zentradi, and this is when they're like, you have to kiss, like, and it's like this shocking thing where the Zentradi are learning about the proto-culture, and
And to your earlier point, Matthew, about it's like, I think I hate him, but I kind of like them.
Yeah.
It's very
that's
cute,
in full
'cause,
effect.
like,
It's amazing because it also becomes like a superpower of like gross out or something.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's earlier on we see they get like one of the dolls of Minmay, and they're like just looking at it, they're like, what is it? And they like one of them, they all have their shields out. One of them pokes it and it starts singing, and they're all like, what is that noise?
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
And yeah, in this one, the way that they escape is by them kissing, and it makes them all freak out. And I do love that's the thing that happens in the show, is that as they discover culture, which is kind of just the coverall for stuff that isn't fighting, which I kind of love.
Mm-hmm.
And they eventually just, the word culture just kind of becomes meaning like kissing and being physically affectionate. Because at one point, one of the Zentradi says to the girl aliens, what are they? The Mantradi or something like that?
Meltradi. Meltron. Zentron and Meltradi.
Yeah, okay, so Meltradi. One of the Zentradi says to the Meltradi, because they've teamed up at this point, well, let's go back to my room and make some culture.
Oh, jeez.
that made me laugh.
At the end of this whole sequence, though, they're like trying to escape because there's an attack from the Meltron, and super violent. You see like the Zentradi getting totally destroyed by this ace pilot, and this character shows up in the series and actually develops a relationship with one of the main characters. Her name's Melia, and you see that very really briskly like touched on within the film. But now the like Hikaru and Misa are trying to escape, and they're trying to capture save everybody. Roy Fokker actually sacrifices himself, which is like kind of a pivotal moment in the TV show. And they do the space fold. They warp away, but Hikaru and Misa now are brushed away, and they get warped to another planet. And this material is really cool. I like this because it's not really something that they did in the series, but I think it's really strong for these two characters as their relationship blooms. So now we get to see that part of the triangle develop.
Yeah, and it's revealed not long after that the horrible, desolate planet they went to is actually Earth.
Yeah.
Which is a cool kind of like Planet of the Apes.
You damn dirty apes. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't not think of that.
Oh my God, I was wrong. It was Earth all along. You finally made a monkey. Yes, you finally made a monkey. Yes, you finally made a monkey out of me.
But it's really cool because it's like them basically trying to figure out any way they can get a message to the in the ADV dub they say Macross, not Macross. And that throws me off.
Nice.
And they also call him Ichijo, not Ichijo, for his last name, and that always makes me laugh.
Ichijo.
Ichijo.
Nice.
This is definitely the stretch of the original series I'm interested in watching, because I loved your point, Matthew, about kind of the maturity of Hikaru's choice in the love triangle. I think just my experience as kind of like a newcomer to the film is I just wasn't as convinced in this particular relationship, but yeah, I'd love to kind of see how this part of the story sort of plays out, like, stretched a bit more for time. But this is definitely a part of the movie where the backdrops in particular, like these landscapes, are just incredible. Just some of the most gorgeous, like, animated paintings of the 80s, I'd have to say.
Yeah, and not just that. I also feel like whenever they show like the alien fleet, either the Meltron or the Zentron, they're these huge kind of organic looking monstrosities, and those are all painted too. Yeah, and the detail that I do like about when they're revealed that they're on Earth is that they see like a battleship. That's the Prometheus. So on the TV show, the Macross is equipped with two like battleships as like the arms. That's not the case in the film, and one of them is the Prometheus. So it's kind of another little Easter egg
to it.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess Misa and Hikaru in the film are pretty much antagonistic through most of it, and then eventually they develop this love for each other because they're like surviving on Earth by themselves. It's really desolate, and she sees like that he's basically sacrificing for her. One of the moments where she's like coughing and he gives her like a handkerchief, and she sees that it's the one that he had Lin Min-mei sign. Like that's kind of like a moment for her. There's also those gross like radioactive fish that they're trying to eat.
Oh my god, yeah.
I love those.
And then when she just like plucks a little like globule off it.
Yeah. Yep.
No, have either of y'all played the game Dredge?
No.
It's a game that came out last year, but it's a horror fishing game. It's really good.
Oh wow.
But that's kind of like the introduction to kind of the weird part of the game is every now and then whenever you catch a fish, it'll be this weird disfigured kind of like gross looking
Simpsonian
version of the fish.
Yeah.
And it made me think of this. I wouldn't be shocked if the guys that made that watched this.
This, I mean, if we're talking about games, this reminds me of in Final Fantasy VI, there's the with Sid and Celes.
When you have to catch the fish and hope they're not poisoned.
Yep. Hopefully people understand what we're talking about, but it's cool.
Oh man, I always said Celeste. That's interesting.
Celes. Celes. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Oh no, it's all good.
So
Quick,
the
we gotta
other
make
thing,
a dub and put on an accent.
The thing,
let's make this episode even longer by talking about Final Fantasy VI.
No. The thing I wanted to mention too is that we're jumping back and forth between the Zentradi now, and you're seeing that they're basically the leader. His name is Bulldozer, which is kind of like a bulldozer.
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 Yeah. He's talking to the two other kind of generals, Britai and Exodol, who like I said, they look very different than what you would see them as in the show. But he's talking about the proto-culture. So he says like in the ancient history, there was a thing called proto-culture, and basically the ancestors said that we need to like stay away from it or it'll like destroy us. And it's like you said, Matthew, it's basically anything that's not just violent war. Mm-hmm. And but then with that he shows them this little, it looks like a memory card or something, and that becomes very important to the end of the film.
Yeah, I do think it's funny that the Zentradi are these big they're the big gross things, but that is, am I reading it right that that's supposed to be like it's like a suit or something, because there are normal sized Zentradi too? Or
so the thing is that there's a way to shrink
like a
them
process
down.
right?
And then there's also a way to enlarge other, the microns. They call them like miclones or microns, and that's basically what they call humans. And as the series progresses, you're going to see interactions between both species, and you see that here. They don't dwell on it too much. Like towards the end of the film, there's like a truce, and they have a press conference, and you see that there are 3 like shrunken down Zentradi men.
Mm-hmm. But what I was gonna say is that I love that the Zentradi are these big gross green aliens, and the Meltradi are kind of just really big cute girls.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I was gonna say. Like Milia, so one of the other main characters, Max, he's one of the other pilots, the Valkyrie pilots, and him and Amelia develop a relationship in the series, and you see that a little bit here. Like eventually Max and her have like a dogfight. It's like a knockout drag out fight, but towards the end of the film there's a shot of them together fighting, and you see that Max is now in one of those suits that she was fighting in, so he's been increased in size. But if you're not paying attention to that, you don't know, it's just like whatever.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, but as far as the film goes, like keeping us moving forward, the Misa and Hikaru basically encounter like what is like at the Atlantis for like the Zentradi on Earth, and it's like this island, and as they explore it, it like rises up out of the ocean, and they're seeing like the remnants of a civilization, and they find out that, you know, they're the progenitors to humanity, and but there's a little bit of drama here too, where Misa's like longing for, you know, a return. They're stuck by themselves, and she also finds a little microchip, and she takes it with her. But then the Macross shows up, so they're saved. So now they have their side of the triangle. The romance is kind of solidified from their side of things.
Yeah, and we that's what plays out later, because Hikaru and Minmay reunite, and of course Minmay's like, oh, we're back together, everything's great, but there's this extra kind of layer.
And Hikaru's like, you're alive? Yeah.
It is cool. I love that drama. It's like so great.
Yeah, that's really juicy, I think.
And that, I don't know, do I want to jump all the way to the last battle? Because that kind of does lead into her getting the song.
Yeah, so what it is that, you know, we see that there's this truce, and Exadal and Britai kind of are like, oh, they're playing around with this thing where it's like, we need to work together or whatever. And yeah, there's this wonderful like dramatic moment you were mentioning where Minmay sees Hikaru, and then you're also kind of seeing that Hikaru is making a choice. You see a scene where he's in his room and he's gonna take the poster down, and then Minmay shows up and says that she loves him. And just, of course, as this is happening, Misa has been actually working on like translating this memory card that she has, and she's understanding that these are maybe like lyrics. And just before that, earlier, you see that Minmay was actually kind of humming the melody. They've understand that there's like a song that's on the Zentradi side. So Misa's bringing this to him, and then she opens the door and sees that the Minmay and him are together. So it turns into this dramatic thing, and Minmay leaves, but Hikaru and Misa have like an understanding. They actually talk it out, and he's like, look, you're the one for me. And she's so happy, and there's this whole deal. But then she gives him the lyrics, and she's like, you got to get this to Minmay, and Minmay's run off. And just as this is happening, the female enemy, they attack the fleet. And
isn't that kind of redundant? I mean, it goes without saying.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, I watched the movie too many times. It's just like,
it's true.
Where its philosophy ends and mine begins. It's just
I didn't watch the last 20 minutes of the movie. I think I got it, though.
But it is similar to like what you were saying earlier, Matthew, where it's like, oh, this is, you know, we got to have some action, so we're going to move into the like final action sequence. Right. And they kind of explain it away where it's like, Bodol is like, well, the song's not finished, so we don't have our ultimate weapon to fight against the Meltron, so we're just going to attack everyone. So then this turns into a huge space opera of a battle, and it just looks amazing.
It's so good. And there's the amazing shot where Hikaru is running up the stairs to find Minmay, and there's like behind the stairs or over, however you want to say it, is just like shots of the battle happening and his memories of him and Minmay, and it's so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then he finds her, and then they have this kind of argument. Basically, she's saying like, why should I do any of this? I just want it to be you and me. And then he basically like
he slaps her.
He slaps her, but he's also like, look, so many people have died, we have to do what we can to save everyone. And she understands that. And there's this amazing shot of them floating in front of this gigantic window that's been exposed to space because of the battle. And she takes those lyrics, and she is the key to this final battle. And before AMVs
100%.
ever existed, this is like literally like you couldn't do any better than what this is. And she's on the main stage of like the fleet, and she's singing her heart out while everybody's battling around her. It's crazy.
私歌うわ思いっきり
I also like that she had enough time to put on a cute outfit before.
Oh yeah,
before going out performing.
She's always got, I just love also how the bridge looks. Like it looks like this crazy. Like you see the bridge. There's like multiple tiers to this bridge, and Misa. I guess we never really mentioned it, but she's like the head of the bridge, and Global is the captain, which he doesn't really get much to do in the movie besides just saying like shoot the cannon or whatever. But seeing her superimposed over the battle and seeing like the development between all of these characters that we've seen up to this point, and like I said, you see Max and Milia, and you see the Macross just looking insane, and the Zentradi hearing the song decide, hey, we're actually going to help you out, and we got to take out Bodolzer because he wants to get rid of these beautiful gifts that we have.
They say one of my favorite lines in the movie, which is culture returning to us?
I know our genes have been reawakened by our creator's culture after 500 million years of time. What? But I do not understand what it means to us.
It's ours, too. We can have the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a timely film, guys.
Yeah. Just stunning. Like we said so many times, this movie just looks visually like just pure bliss. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Even when like the models don't look great, they look amazing because there's like 5 tones of coloring on them, and there's so much depth to
and
these
all of the like
designs.
optical effects and in the animation throughout the movie are just like amazing,
and the way they capture, Min-Mei's basic, it's like choreography. She's not just singing; she's doing like her own like kind of pop idol dance, and it's just it looks super super cool. So they burst into Bodolzer's like lair, and there's like basically like a Death Star run.
It is very Return of the Jedi,
led by Hikaru and his amazing like VF-1J. I think it's like a custom Valkyrie, and he makes his way to the center and blasts.
That's kind of a
shit
famous. I love that. Yeah, that's how he solves. He just shoots him.
Yeah.
That's how the day gets saved.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a pretty famous Easter egg in this scene is whenever Hikaru is like blasting his way in, and you see all these missiles. One of the missiles is a Budweiser can.
Yeah, it's great.
amazing.
I don't know if I had to have mentioned it in our Project A-ko episode, but there's basically a nod to that in A-ko where there's like a Coca-Cola can missile in that movie towards the end.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and they kill him and everybody's happy, and Misa and Min-Mei have this kind of glance at each other. I love that too. They're looking at each other expressionless for a moment, and then they kind of smile, and Min-Mei holds up the lyrics, acknowledging how they've worked together to do this. It's super fun.
Yeah, and then she sings over the credits.
And the
Another
look of the
great-
credits is really cool. It has almost this like, I'm not sure how this is approached, but almost like it was like taped off of television kind of a thing. I know you get
Well,
this
Yeah,
quality
yeah.
that you're not in the lens of the movie proper. You're in this kind of like the lore of the world or something. Yeah, super tasteful, I thought.
Well, I can talk about that. That's like a little extra thing that is on
Oh, okay,
the Blu-ray
awesome.
rip that I shared with you guys because
Oh,
okay.
cool.
So
yeah,
just,
they actually ran out of time or budget. I can't remember which.
Yeah.
To the original ending is they wanted to film this concert. And it's basically like Min-May's farewell concert. And so in the original cut of the movie, there's just credits with the song, which the song is amazing too. I love that song. In some ways, I like that song more than Do You Remember Love? So what they did is 5 years later, they released this kind of short, it's almost like a music video OVA compilation thing called Macross Flashback 2012. And they animated that concert. So what you guys saw on this rip that I shared with you is that inserted into the credits.
Oh, cool.
okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mhm. Yeah, so you see Min-May, she looks a little, more mature in just how she's dressed, and
That's true.
it's
Because 2012 is 3 years after the events of the movie.
yeah. So that's what you're seeing there. It's really cool.
Very cool.
Yep. But yeah, that's the film. I mean, a lot happens, but also, like I said, in a way, they rush through some things because they're pulling material from the TV series. But I also think that, I mean, the visuals stand alone. It's such a high mark even to this day. We talked about some really great animation on the podcast already, like I think a Red Line, but this is just like perfectly of an era, perfectly aesthetics.
Yeah.
Aesthetics are such a popular thing these days, and I think like with something like, I don't know, the 80s aesthetic,
I was gonna say
anybody
80s space anime is very much an aesthetic that I think has a lot of legs
Yeah.
nowadays too.
Mhm. Yep.
And it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, that's well put. It's weird. I was getting, I don't know, almost feeling a kind of like parallel appreciation for something that we talk about on like the kung fu side of things. Like, let's say, kind of the heyday of Golden Harvest. Something like Magnificent Butcher. I feel like when a lot of us talk about that, there's this sense of appreciation and like a little bit of a lament, kind of like, okay, this is a moment in time that can't be recreated, where you have this amount of talent that we're so, I don't know, skilled at this particular craft that has fallen out of favor for all of these reasons, and the technology has moved on for all of these reasons. And I feel a similar way about just kind of the production of this animation, and also there are these other factors that we can't control, which is like, the economy of Japan in the 80s. How are you able to, afford this kind of a approach to production? But I mean, I think, yeah, for me, this is, it's not a useful blur, but this is like the Magnificent Butcher of
Of anime,
Japanese
yeah.
animation. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that is a, if you're not one of the 3 people on this podcast, that's not a super helpful description, but it is accurate. It is very much of a time. It's all of the elements that we love combining together in a really effective way. And I think it's a treat for anyone to watch. Just honestly, like Magnificent Butcher is. So,
and I'm excited because this opens the doors to other stuff that I've loved for forever, that we can draw a direct line from this film to other 80s animation that I really enjoy.
Which actually, yeah, that's obviously Macross has had a really long life afterwards. There's like 30 Macross video games.
Yeah.
I did play at least like 20 minutes of a couple of them.
Oh, which ones?
I did. So I did the Super Nintendo one,
Scramble Commander?
Scramble Valkyrie.
Yeah.
I played that one, which is like a shmup. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
Actually, the thing that was in common with all three of them was that one of the key mechanics is it's transforming between the three forms, where it's like the F-14, the like halfway between that and the robot, and then the robot.
Yep. Gerwalk is what they call
Gerwalk,
it.
that's what it's called.
The mid form, yeah.
So I played that one. That one's probably my favorite because it was the most easy to understand, especially because all these are in Japanese.
Yeah.
I think there was like one or two of them got a U.S. release, but it's not very many. And then I played a little bit of Macross Digital Mission VFX, which is the PS1. That's the PS1 game. Yeah, I played a little bit of that. That one's very difficult to figure out.
I have that. I imported it back in the day. And it is one of these things where, honestly, it's something that I really like from this era, where it's a game that, and it sounds like a criticism, but when you play it initially, it's like, how the hell do I even play this game? But it's one of these situations when you do understand it and when it clicks, it turns into this really fun thing.
It's really, but it's like a dog fighting game. It is interesting. It's it's a little weird, but it is cool because like each of the different forms move differently, and so you have to kind of figure out when to use each so that you can find enemies and all that.
Something that Marty and I have talked about a lot, where it's like, back in the day there wasn't like a Bible, like here, if you're gonna play as an airplane, it has to play this way, or if you're gonna play as a ninja, they have to play. So everybody was just kind of trying to figure that out, and that kind of creates these fun little experiences, which nowadays I think isn't as prevalent, unfortunately, especially in like AAA games. But there are so many like Macross games, and Macross showing up in other games. So I love the Super Robot Wars series, and outside of that, there's been some. So Super Robot Wars is like a strategy RPG series where they just throw all these different anime series together. Something that would be impossible to logistically do in the United States because everybody has different licenses for things. But Macross being one of like the fundamental series that would be included in those games. So you get to replay different situations, and they play with the ideas. Fokker, in the Japanese dub, Roy Fokker's voice Akira Kamiya, who was also Kenshiro in Fist of the North Star. But yeah, more than that, he's also been in a lot of mecha shows. So if you have a character voiced by the same voice actor from different characters, they'll play around with that in the games too, or they'll have the two characters talk to each other. It's a lot of fan service. That's pretty much all what it is.
That's what Super Robot Wars kind of is.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to see that. But there was some 3D like kind of action games. I shared a clip with you guys from, it's called Another Century's Episode, and it's basically like kind of like a Ace Combat / like Zone of the Enders situation, but with a lot of different mecha shows. And in the second game, Do You Remember Love was featured in it, and actually is kind of one of the finales, basically the finale of the game. So it's cool to see that realized in like another 3D game.
The other one that I played was, there's a PS2 game that's just called the Super Dimension Fortress Macross. And it's probably my second favorite of it, because it's a third person flight sim and robot sim, I guess, where it kind of felt more like an Ace Combat kind of game, where like you're flying around and you have limited missiles, but you have like 1 billion of them, and then you can switch to the robot to run around the ground, and then it's kind of switching between and stuff, and it was pretty neat. I could see myself like trying to learn it more than just looking at and kind of bouncing off of it. But the funny part about all three of them is that all three of them feature versions of the Macross theme from the show, but in varying levels of bad instruments.
Sure. Yeah, and Super Robot Wars, over the years, that was always the case, because whenever you are using a unit, they would play like a song from that series. But up until like the PS2 late PS2, early PS3 era, they wouldn't actually use the song. It would be like, an approximation through like synthesizer or whatever, the sound font they used. So that's always pretty fun to look that stuff up. Regarding Macross, though, just as a series in general, I think that it translates awesome to a video game. And I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but I did share something with you guys, and I do think that this could translate really successfully to a live action film. And in the 90s, Shoji Kawamori actually wrote a treatment up for that, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, I did read through that.
Yeah, and it's actually geared towards a Western version of Macross, if they were to make a Hollywood movie version of that. Yeah. But I honestly, like I said, you've got those three things. You got pop music, you've got a romance, like a love triangle, and you also have action with like robots and transforming. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it works. There could be a Hollywood version of this. I mean, I don't know what it would be like. I do remember years back, they were always saying that Leonardo DiCaprio, either he was trying to get it made or he was tied to a Macross or a Robotech film. And I mean, I'm sure with this year being the 40th anniversary, who knows what could happen. But this is the 40th anniversary of Do You Remember Love in 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we're old, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. And actually, it's funny you said Leonardo DiCaprio, because whenever you were saying about we have all these elements combining, I think that's a part that doesn't really get the praises sung whenever it comes to Titanic, because Titanic is it's made by James Cameron. It is kind of an action movie. It's kind of a disaster movie in addition to the romance stuff.
And he loves anime.
Like that mixing. And he loves anime, yeah.
Yep.
So like the mixing of genres really isn't.
I mean, yeah, that is so much of the genius of Titanic. Is it's like, the ultimate date movie is one where actually like everybody in the theater has something to like really sink their teeth into. And yeah, he clearly seemed to be right. I mean, I don't know, and that does seem to be like his approach with the Avatar films too. Is it's like those same pillars.
Yeah.
No comment beyond that.
You mentioned, where do I go from here, right? So I haven't seen all the series of Macross, but I've seen like a handful, and I would recommend a couple. So I mentioned to you earlier Macross 7, which is a TV series, and then an OVA series after that. It's totally different from this, but it's a sequel to Macross Do You Remember Love and the original series, because some characters return and some characters are in the lineage of characters that you see here. But it's basically like a super robot show where hot-blooded heroes, and the power of music like literally is a force in this series. Like the main character plays a guitar to pilot his Valkyrie, and they're in a rock band. But I love the music. It's very rock and roll music, pop music, and the characters are really interesting and crazy. Macross Plus was an OVA series that also exists as a compilation film, and that has music by Yoko Kanno of Cowboy Bebop fame.
Oh, cool.
And also Shinichiro Watanabe, the director and the mind behind Cowboy Bebop. This was just before Cowboy Bebop came out, maybe 3-4 years before Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, wow.
And I think both the film and the OVA exist in their own ways, and I would recommend them both. And it also has really great, I mean, there's some CG involved, but in a way that I think really works. And the idea And the love triangle in this is an interesting thing because you think it's going to be one thing, but it turned into another thing. And also, like what I was mentioning earlier about like Hatsune Miku, this is kind of a direct line to something like a Hatsune Miku in Macross Plus. There's also Macross 2, which was produced shortly after this. I think it's like late 80s, early 90s. And it's a OVA series that was produced away from the Big West, who's the company that owns all this stuff. It was like its own original little OVA series that is weird. It's kind of exists out on its own, but the production value is really nice. And actually, there was a Kickstarter for a remaster of that I contributed to, so I'll be getting that when it comes out.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and but beyond that, yeah, there's been a lot of Macross. And it continues to be a lot of Macross, which is great.
Yeah, I was gonna say I watched an episode of the most recent Macross series, which is a series called Macross Delta from 2016, and it is some anime bullshit.
Yeah.
It does take it an interesting direction where I think kind of going off of more of the Macross 7 than the original series, but the main the Valkyries are a pop idol group. And they're doing their pop idol thing, and that's what is like fighting the aliens and stuff. Which I'm definitely not into that kind of thing. And it had a lot of goofy fan service-y moments and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do get the idea of it, which is kind of cool, but not for me.
That's fun. Yeah, I mean, for real, if it were just honestly, if I could just recommend you one after watching this, I would say check out Macross Plus because it's awesome. And like I said, Yoko Kanno. I mean, Yoko Kanno's always killing it, and
Yoko Kanno
kills it in that.
Shout out to our friends over at Swim Fans. In the Shame Songs episode of it, I talked about Wolf's Rain, and the only reason I watched Wolf's Rain was because of Yoko Kanno. So.
Dude, I mean, I love that episode, and when I heard it, I was like, man, that was like on like my running playlist, that Wolf's Rain intro song.
It's a good song. I wasn't saying it's a bad song.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
No, I love it. But yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff I could have talked about, but I wanted to keep it pretty short, and we're at an hour and a half, which is great.
Yeah, it's fine.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, that's Do You Remember Love? Any final thoughts, or you want to wrap it up?
Yeah. Before I'm done talking about this, I did want to mention there's another podcast that is just covering Macross. It's called Dude, You Remember Macross? Which is great. And Coop, one of the hosts, has done a lot of amazing writing in the anime sphere. And I'll definitely link to some of his work. And there's one interview that he did an article based on an interview with Noboru Ishiguro. And is very enlightening, and I really also one of the things we didn't mention is Macross. The title itself is actually a play on Macbeth, because when they were in pre-production, there was like a temporary name for the series, but one of the producers wanted it to be named Macbeth, but they didn't want it to be so close because of the drama in this, so they changed it in the Japanese pronunciation of things, and that's called Macross.
What's smart, because there's also that kind of like long-standing curse in the theater community.
That's true.
You're never supposed to say the name Macbeth out loud. The
Amazing.
Scottish play you're supposed to say. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that. Did I just curse myself?
No. You're good. Like
you're not performing.
We can all talk about it, but yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
If you're staging it, yeah.
Nice. Well, I will never be staging it, so I'm good.
All right. Sounds good.
But yeah, check out that podcast. They've covered like almost everything to do with Macross, and
very cool.
They also do some great writing. So please check them out, and I'll link it.
Well, thank you so much for checking out our show. If you enjoyed it, then you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and the other one, Threads. We are at Heroes the Number 3 Podcasts on all of them. If you like the show, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or I think Spotify, you can do it too. That really does help the show get more eyes on and everything. If you have a memory of Macross or anything related to it, then shoot us an email at here's3podcast@gmail.com. So this is a little animated interlude. So now we are diving into a new arc. And Carlos, I know you've been very excited for this arc for a while. So can you tell us what our training for next week is?
Yeah, so this is going to be our big summer run. I'm still actually deciding on what we're going to do first.
Editor Matthew here. We're doing Shinobi no Mono from 1962. I'm going to keep everything else in, though.
But what I can tell you is it will be a Japanese film based around ninjas.
Summer ninjas.
Yeah, most likely from the 60s. So I've got a couple of things that I'm trying to decide on. And I don't think this is going to be as big as like an arc of Godzilla films, but it will definitely be more than 4 episodes. So I'm trying to give us like what Marty says, a tasting tour of ninja related cinema from many different countries around the world. And it's going to be awesome. So yeah, look forward to that. And if I do decide, we'll just drop the audio in afterwards.
Yeah. Very seamlessly. Well, until next week, where we're taking a look at Shinobi no Mono. I'm Matthew.
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
And we are the Heroes 3. Remember your training. And remember love.
Amazing. There was another thing. Actually, let's do this at the end. So I have two post credits, 2 things from when I was a kid. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I have a vivid memory of getting on the school bus and seeing a kid that had a toy of the Macross, and it looked gigantic. And it was. It was a gigantic toy. The other Macross toy memory I have as a kid was that I had a Valkyrie, like the Skull Squadron, yellow and black striped Valkyrie.
Oh, cool.
But I could never figure out how to transform it. And it's a lasting like sadness that I have. But thanks to this episode, I realized that the toy that I had did not transform.
Oh, awesome.
Matchbox released these big Valkyrie toys, and they were basically action figure toys, like a G.I. Joe jet or something.
Gotcha.
But it looked like the Valkyrie, so in my head, I'm like thinking, oh, it should transform, but I couldn't figure it out. Guess what? It didn't transform.
It couldn't transform. There you go.
Yep.
Full circle.
Yep. And then the one last thing again is that I mentioned Transformers, and everybody that maybe is familiar with Transformers and Macross understands that there was a Transformer named Jetfire that was released back in the 80s. That was a Valkyrie. They released that as a Transformer in the West. So for a long time,
cool.
People had a Transformer that was a Macross.
That was just a Valkyrie.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yep. That's all I got.
All right. For real this time.
For real. Bye.
All right. I'm going to stop my recording.
Me too.
Heroes 3 is part of the Mercado Brothers Podcast Network.